There you go.
And we are streaming live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the last day of February 2023. You've got a special guest today, and we've got a special guest, and we're all special guests because today's morning coffee review, and we're here to talk about all things Bluebeam. So with that, good morning, Michael. How's it going today?
It's going good over here in the Grand Canyon State. We definitely are a little bit chillier, definitely not as cold as most of the Midwest and Northwest. However, it is a great day, and we have Liz on to show us all things about stamps and JavaScript, which we learned a little bit about last time, which was very intuitive and definitely worthwhile of us going through and learning about this JavaScript path. And I'll pass it over to you, Jason, and then we'll let Liz take the wheel.
Yeah, so when we're talking JavaScript, don't worry, it doesn't get that scary. It can, and we might get there later, but basically we're enhancing the functions of stamps, and stamps can be used in many different ways within inside of Revu, whether you're professionally stamping it or just applying review stamps or something like that. We'll get into the software. We'll take a look at stamps real quick, and then we're going to rely on Liz to supercharge those workflows and show us some cool stuff that we can do in JavaScript. So before we do that, Liz, for those who haven't seen you join us here before, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Liz. I have a Bluebeam blog where I do like tips and tricks. I haven't updated it in a while. I've done a couple of videos now on YouTube. So if you go to my website, those are the most recent things, but I call it Tuesday Tips and Tricks or Tuesday Tidbits. And it's everything on there you can learn in less than 5 minutes, because who has time to sit and read articles these days? So everything except for 3 videos, everything else is text, and there's GIFs, so you don't need sound, and you can learn it in less than 5 minutes. So that's my website. I also got into JavaScript in Bluebeam after XCon 2019. Somebody there presented on JavaScript, and my mind was blown, and I went home and I immediately made a game in JavaScript in Bluebeam, which I can show you if you want to see the game that I made.
Yes.
I have an idea for a new game that I just thought of last night. So I might be making a new game if I can get it to work. But today, what I'll be teaching you is just how it works with stamps. And you're really not going to have to write any code. You're just going to modify some text that's already there. So we'll go over that.
Very cool. Very cool. So CJ had put a link in the chat. So those in the chat, take a look at Liz's website, bookmark it, because eventually she's going to update it all the time. And there's going to be good stuff.
Yeah, but, and I'd like to add one thing. Going through the reviews last week, if you don't feel some of this is as informative as you're looking for, remember, MCR is always about open to questions. So if you are looking for something that you are in particular about that isn't pertaining to the topic, feel free to ask any questions. You can dive deep into anything about Bluebeam as a whole. So at any point, if you want to deviate, we can. But for now, we'll turn it over to Liz.
And real quick though, next week is March. I still need to write all the topics for March and April. So by all means, hit up the chat. What do you want to see? Because I will start using them. There's been some requests for an estimation workflow. Because when we had Vince and Doug on here the other day, they got really in depth, but we didn't really take the baby steps to get to where they are. And I think that excited a lot of folks and how we can use more estimation. So we might start generically in March with estimating. Maybe we'll tie that into some sort of March Madness guesstimation theme, and then go from there. So yeah, if you guys got questions or if there's a topic you want us to cover, put it in the chat, put it in the YouTube chat. We will arrange the next 2 months accordingly.
Yeah, and I will say, if you are looking for baby steps, there's a white paper estimation in Revu that comes with a profile and a tool set. If you want to look on our website, I'm sure CJ will post it at some point to learn the baby steps if you want to jump ahead before we have something like that.
Cool.
Am I still next week?
What were we talking about next week? I forgot. I know you mentioned it, but
sessions and statuses, because we need the alliteration, right? Like this was stamps and scripting. And so
Yep.
then next
Yes.
week it's sessions and status.
If you want to come back on next week, we'd be more than happy to have you back on.
Okay, we're doing it.
Okay.
March
Set in stone.
7th. Okay, writing it down. Encircled. All right, now we're ready to go.
Okay. Last time we talked about this, Michael kind of showed how to do some stamps. I never use. Where do I share screen?
Big green button in the
Last
bottom.
time I showed
yes,
you,
big green button.
I think I like to see Liz's reactions on some things that I say. So last time I showed the way to create a stamp that wasn't part of a stamp. It was actually just a couple markups grouped together. And then versus having a stamp for those folks that didn't know how to go through and create or rewrite the JavaScript was what I did last time.
Yes, so I have all of that. Sorry, I'm rearranging my other screen. I
You're
never
good.
use Zoom, and I'm just like, okay. So stamps, if you don't have any already, you can come to the Revu custom libraries. And I'll put that in the chat. And you can see that they have stamps for you. A few basic ones here as just normal stamps. And then they have these interactive stamps down here. And that's what we're going to be talking about. They're interactive because they have JavaScript kind of running things in the background. And you can download these and use them right away. So that's what I have here is this submittal review stamp, and you'll see one says batch and one does not say batch. So if you use this submittal review stamp, you'll see this dialog pop up and it says JavaScript window. That's letting you know that JavaScript is doing something in the background as like a security kind of measure, so that you know that something's happening. And if you didn't initiate it, you shouldn't continue. But we did because we're good. We downloaded the stamp, and so that you would fill it out with whatever you want. And something that's also programmed into this, which I'll show you. If I don't choose a status, these are radio buttons where you can only pick one. If I don't, I get a little error window saying that I have to. And that's something that you can modify if you want. But I'm gonna click approved. I'm gonna click OK. And then the stamp pops in. And you would, if you're using the batch stamp, so let's just use the regular stamp again. And I'm going to click it and it pops up and the window is blank and asks me to fill out everything all over again. So if I use the batch stamp, and right now I'm just clicking and it comes in as a certain size, but you can click and drag if your space for the stamp is smaller. So let's fill out some stuff and I'm going to click OK. And here it comes in. They made it green so that you can tell the difference, but I'm going to use the batch stamp again. And the window didn't pop up. It kept all of that info that I've previously typed. And so that's the difference between a regular stamp and a batch stamp.
So when you go to their website to download stamps, you can, in the zip file, there'll be a couple of different things, right?
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, they'll give you a zip file. And so these are just unzipped. And this is what it'll look like in there. And they do give you instructions on how to modify stuff and how it works. I made my own visuals for today. But
did you find their visuals informative somewhat to help you through the path that Bluebeam created?
Yes. So these visuals that you'll find in the zip folder are specific to this stamp, which is nice. Also, this is old.
Yeah, so, you could tell back at the top where I looked at the stamp button. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, this is old.
So if anyone from Bluebeam's listening in, can we get some updated
they should
content?
These. The process is the same, but the visuals are a little different.
Yeah.
So it's okay. if you read it carefully, it'll get you where you're going.
So what if, Liz, helpful tip in the future, you posted some of yours on your content page of your new visuals?
I could, yeah, I could. I don't use stamps a whole ton, but I could make a post about with containing those visuals and like, here's how it works. Bluebeam also does have this website, I put it in the chat, that walks you through everything. And it's a lot of reading. And it can be a little overwhelming your first time. But they do go through it all. And I have some visuals similar to this, but I've like color coded things, and made the, oh, my chats aren't showing up evidently.
Oh, yours is the panelists and hosts. DJ CJ, can you change?
Okay.
Yeah, or writes myself
wait.
and Liz.
Yeah, I don't have everybody.
She just has to change us to co-hosts.
Everyone. Thanks.
I'll go back and repost everything that you did, so you can continue.
So I'll get to checkboxes in a second, but this is on their website, and I think it's better than the visuals that they give you when you download the stamp, but still kind of overwhelming. So we're gonna go through it. So here I'm in the stamp and I can edit it just like I would edit any other stamp. And if I go to Tools, Form, JavaScript, or Control-Shift-J, it brings up this box, and this is the visual that looks different. It used to look much different in 2018 and before. So I can click Edit, and you get all this gobbledygook. I like to use a text editor. I have Sublime Text 3. Let me make a new file real quick.
Well, what is this text editor?
It is a text editor specifically for coding, and it just helps me.
Is this a free download?
It is.
No way.
So I could go to View, Syntax, JavaScript.
What's it called?
This is Sublime Text 3. Or 4 maybe, I think it's 4 now. Or you could use Notepad++, or there's a lot of free resources out there that are text editors that are meant for code. Because you can see that this is a lot easier to read than this, right? I think it's easier. And what's DAX? I don't know what DAX is. Doug.
For the Power BI syntax.
I have no idea. You would go to View and then Syntax and then see if it has a language in here that you're looking for. And if it doesn't have a language that you're looking for, you can actually usually add it for free. So Google that if you're interested in it. But what I like about this is it makes sure that I have my like opening and closing brackets. So I clicked on this closing bracket here, and it underlined the matching bracket. So when you're updating these things, if I wanted to add a new line, it can be easy when you're going along to not know, to lose track of what parenthesis is paired with what parenthesis and closing bracket and things like that. So I like Sublime Text, but you can use whatever you want.
So it's a coding assistant essentially versus what you have there, which is just text.
Yeah. It's basically like you put it in Notepad and whatever. So here I have the JavaScript window and the dialog box side by side, and you can kind of see that the radio buttons are grouped together and the options, the text box options are grouped together. And it's, if you download any of the stamps from the Bluebeam website, they're all going to be like that. Like the with are always going to be grouped. You're not going to find some radio buttons and then some text and then some radio buttons. They're always going to kind of appear in these groups. And this is what it would look like on the stamp. So you can see you can arrange the stamp however you want. And that's the front facing thing, right? That's the thing it's going to be on your drawings. So you can make this look however you want, and put stuff in whatever order. So here's the code, and I copied it into a white background text editor so that it makes it a little bit easier to read. Again, much easier than the, this, I think. That's, I know what I'm looking at, and it's still hard to read. So the orange code goes with the orange highlighted text on the dialog box. And you can see what goes with what, because in code, there is something called a comment, and every coding language has a different, has a way to comment, and sometimes they're different from each other. But in JavaScript, it's a / / to make a comment. And basically this is for humans to make notes to each other, or to make notes to our future selves when we forgot what we were doing here. You like leave a note for yourself. This is what this is for. And all the code in the Bluebeam stamps that you can download, they all have comments, and the red arrows are pointing to the comments. So you can see the orange section begins with a comment that says this maps to the radio group. And the bluish purple section says this goes to the text fields, which is what's highlighted in the dialog box. Now to edit this, if I were to, I'm just going to come back to the stamp real quick. You make an interactive stamp by putting form fields in there. So you do have to have Bluebeam Extreme to work with form fields, but people do not have to have Extreme to use the stamp. Once the stamp is created, anyone can use it. You just have to have Extreme to make it, because you have to have access to form fields. So that's what this is showing right here, is the form fields. And I've just chosen the radio buttons here. So there's a radio button group called status, and the group header I've highlighted in pink in the code and for the form fields. And then what's highlighted in yellow, that's what you would change if you wanted to, if you change the name of the form fields here for your radio buttons, you would have to change whatever's in quotations next to the word value. So if I wanted to change the radio buttons to say completely different things, I would just have to make sure that they matched whatever is between the quotation marks. And then whatever I want to show up in the dialog box here in purple, that's what goes in description. So whatever's between the quotation marks in description is what will show up on your dialog box when your user tries to place a stamp. And then here's that error message that we were talking about earlier. So if you want to change that error message to something else.
And I will add, just like you said, Extreme, it's also complete. However,
yes,
complete is not required for auto creation of forms now. So it's in all versions moving forward for review 21.
Yeah, I had a bunch of the stuff memorized for standard and CAD and Extreme, and now we're moving to something completely different, and we don't have 21 yet. So I have not memorized the differences.
Yeah,
that's what you're here for.
Yeah, I always refer to the page until finally when review 20 decides to be end of life.
Yeah. Some of my coworkers are asking me if they can do things in the version of Bluebeam that we have. And I have to go find archived pages on the internet for some of this really specific stuff, because it doesn't show up anywhere on the Bluebeam website anymore.
Yeah. Because they're changing everything to the new version.
So I started with the radio group because I think it's a little more straightforward. The text boxes. Almost every stamp that you can download from the Bluebeam website are going to have text boxes, and they're a little bit more confusing to look at. So let's see. I made layer states after last time. So let's do yellow. Yellow is very similar. If I go back to the radio box, this value has to match the form field exactly. Spaces, dashes, capital letters, you basically would want to copy and paste the text is the end result. So you can type it if you want, but if there's any sort of typo, including capital differences, capital lowercase differences, it will not work. So coming down here to the text fields, you can see my text fields down here in my form fields. And again, this one is more nicely labeled, I think, with the field, because the other one says value. Field, I think, is nicer.
Some people might not understand the differences. Yeah.
And he should change that. It's very easy to change that. But anyway, field, you would change the text between the quotation marks, and it has to match exactly what your form field name is. And we go to, what is it? The periwinkle. That is what's going to appear as the description in your dialog box that pops up for the user. So this is what the user will see next to the text field.
So the description is just a label, essentially. Okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't need to match anything. It just needs to be proper text for people to read, right?
Yes, this is for your users. This is the front-facing thing for your users, for them to understand what you want them to type in the text boxes. Let's go to so you'll notice that the date field and the checked by field sorry, reading chat. The date field and the checked by field have some extra stuff in there. And the date field, it does have some actual code going on. And what it's doing is it's getting the date, and it's this big long date. So it would be like February 28th, 2023, 9:54 a.m. Eastern time. So that's what this current date is doing. It's getting a big long date. And then what's coming here is it's just getting the month, putting a dash, getting the day, putting a dash or a slash, and then getting the year and putting this bit is just like concatenating in Excel with using a forward slash to separate all your values. So if you want to change the order of these for whatever region you're from, you certainly can. You would just take the current date, make sure you grab all the open and closing parentheses and copy and paste it into whatever order that you want it to be in. And
there were some suggestions from Joshua just in terms of language being used. And
that's what I was chuckling at.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a big debate.
Yeah. Alex, yes. So I guess we should have started off with this. I wasn't aware that this was pushed out yet, but I was aware that it was coming down the pipeline for it. That end of life is now moved to June. So for those folks using Revu 19 and below, the end of life would have happened on the 23rd of this month, and folks of next month, would have needed to migrate over if they wanted to. So the end of life has changed to June, and they haven't given an end date yet to upgrade your licenses. So just be aware of that. That's kind of up in the air of when they'll not let you upgrade from 19 and below to Revu 20. So just be aware. End of life did get pushed back to June. So your studio will still have access and you will still be supported till June so far is what they've announced.
Correct. And we don't know if they're going to move the goalposts again. I don't like it when they're making us liars because, they've been telling us get everybody by March 21st or whatever it is. But
at least they posted it. So March 21st it was all over their website. But they decided to push it back.
Yep. And that's been changed. Also, since on the screen, we've got approved, revised, rejected, not reviewed. There's some interesting stuff going on in the chat that I haven't seen before. And it sounds like some of you other people have. So there's some lawyer speak about, Josh put in the chat, change the name from approved to something else. So they use no exceptions taken, or instead of, revise, say, make corrections noted, or amend and resubmit, or rejected, see remarks, or for information only. So there's some legal speak here that might be changing how firms approach the approved, revised, rejected thing. But for what's on the screen, these are much easier words.
And you can change them to be whatever you need them to be, which is the nice thing about these custom stamps.
And having Liz teach us all how to do this.
Yes. So, and I'll show you something cool with the date in a second once we talk about what's in blue. And so basically, let me highlight this real quick. This default and this default, you could, like, these defaults, delete whatever in the quotation marks. And there will be no default. So like project, when I bring up this dialog box, when I place a stamp, there's nothing in project automatically. But when I placed that stamp, you should have noticed that a username and a date automatically popped in. So that's what these default functions are doing. And if you didn't want them, you would just copy this default function with all of its brackets and everything into one of these to get rid of that. And then something I found, so this return collab user is your Windows username. So basically, if I come in here and I go to my C drive and I go to users, whatever this is right here, that's what will appear in the text box or in the dialog box by default. And I think they did that because most of us, our username is like the first part of our work email. Like mine is L Larson. So if you're logged into a work computer, generally it's some form of your name that makes sense. But if you don't want that and you want it a little more customizable, you can say return identity.name, and that will automatically fill in whatever is here in your dialog box. So if I wanted it to be my initials, or if I wanted it to be like, something like that and be more official, I can change my username up here to be whatever I want, and then use identity.name, and it will use that by default in the text box instead.
And just remember that username is your default name in your markups list, and it's not the default name in your studio session. That's different from that preferences path. There's a different studio ID name.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to print or pink real quick. Zoom in. I wanted to just show you that this right here is real JavaScript. This whole thing is what's called an object in JavaScript, and you're kind of just modifying an object. You're not really like doing any coding. This right here is coding. So let me delete all that nonsense. So I'm going to say this is a screenshot, so I can't copy and paste the text. So if I mess it up, and then I'm going to say console.print line date. And let's see, I'm going to highlight it, Control Enter, and this is what that current date, that new date parentheses, is returning. And so when you see this current date get month, it's telling it to just get the month, and then just get the day and just get the year, and then concatenate them. So, and it's saying get month +1 because in JavaScript, if you have a list of anything, the first item in the list is 0, and the second item in the list is 1. And there's a lot of coding languages like that, and JavaScript is one of them. So if we get current month, like if we get January, it'll be 0. So you have to add a 1 to get it to the proper date format. But so here's where you can play around with JavaScript and not really affect anything. You can type it down here, and then you hit Control Enter, and it'll run the JavaScript. I haven't been keeping a super close eye on chat, but I did, as an experiment, ask ChatGPT to do some stuff for me. And I found that I had to ask very, very specific questions. So I asked a general question first: how do I return the color of a form field using JavaScript and Bluebeam? And it gave me more of like if you were using JavaScript in the web, which this.
So Yeah.
So that's not okay.
To add to this, Matt found out one of our internal team members, if you finally find an answer that is close to what you're looking for, stay in that chat and reply to that chat, and it'll start, and give this kudos to Matt if he's in here. It'll start going through that specific chat. Yeah.
And you can thumbs up their answers. So I asked a little bit more specific, a form field in a PDF using JavaScript. And I asked specifically for Adobe because I think they were the ones to do it first. Sorry, the A word. And this looks mostly correct. I don't think Bluebeam recognizes console.log. If you saw me earlier, I typed console.println. That's what works in Bluebeam. But these, if I asked how do you return the color of a form field, so like the background color of a form field, and this code would be how that works. So I asked if it could do it in Bluebeam, and it did return code. I didn't test it, but this
what
looks
if you
correct.
said Revu versus Bluebeam?
Let's find out.
Well, I think the answer is already in the chat, that since there's not a reference to a Bluebeam API in the public domain, it's not going to know how to do that.
It did return. This is correct though. Form field, the get field. Yeah, this is correct. So we'll see if ChatGPT is busy right now. Sometimes they kick me out because they're busy. Yeah, console.log is not correct to my knowledge. I've never gotten it to work in Bluebeam, but we're a little sluggish this morning, ChatGPT.
I think
Everyone's using it.
Well,
yes, these are like peak hours for ChatGPT.
Yeah,
and they want you to use plus because it gets a faster response. So I think they're intentionally slowing it down a little bit.
They want their money.
The overlords are wised up on us.
They got everyone. They probably gave everyone full bandwidth at the beginning, and now.
Well, yeah, you got to hook people.
It's really, really good.
Well, I mean, with how many people are probably talking to it simultaneously, I can understand how it would take a lot of bandwidth for everybody, and servers aren't free.
Yeah, I was talking with Matlin this morning that it's going to be one of those things that we're just going to leave up all day long. Instead of bouncing ideas off a coworker, you're just going to ask ChatGPT. You don't have to think anymore. Just here you go. It
gave me a suggestion one time. It's probably in my coding questions chat that you see there. And I didn't agree with the particular suggestion, so I continued coding and tried something else, but left the line that it wanted me to change, because I didn't think that was the problem, but I modified other stuff, and then I pasted it again and I had a different error. And it was like, well, I told you before, you should have changed this line. And I was like,
wow.
And it's just like me reading in my head, like an intonation, but anyway, yeah, some of this looks correct. So, but not the console.log. Another great way to use ChatGPT is, for instance, I said, explain to a beginner what recursive functions are in JavaScript. And rather than like Googling it, which I can, it gave me a really nice example right here.
No way. So if you are not have enough time to explain an email to someone what the issue is, you could ask chat and then quickly read through it to see if you're verifying it is correct, and then just copy paste, send it to.
Yeah.
So as a BIM manager, it could be your full-time assistant.
Oh yeah. You can paste in a long email and say, summarize this for me. Yep. So if you've got a wordy client or coworker, here's your Cliff Notes done. It's pretty cool.
There's a guy who made a add-in that uses OpenAI. So it's not specifically ChatGPT, but it's the engine that runs ChatGPT. And he made a complete Office suite integration. I think it's like $60 and it's a one-time fee, and it integrates with Word and Outlook and Excel and things like that.
And what does it do?
Basically this right here. But he even integrated personas. Do I have it logged in on this?
Yeah. So did you pay for it?
Yeah, it's like $60, but it's a one-time fee. Oh, I don't have it. I don't have it valid. It's validated on my work machine.
Okay.
but it's
Could
an
you post
added.
that
Oh,
at
Yep.
some
gosh.
point, or just
Add
post,
to cart.
post it in MCR if you want?
Yeah, I found it. It's right here. So yeah, he integrated it with OpenAI into Office, and he added personas. So I don't know if he updated the site to show that yet, but there's various personas that you can have it take on based on the personality type that you're looking for that thing. Anyway, so I used ChatGPT quite a bit when I was getting into doing some VBA programming, because it's been literally like 5 years since I've programmed VBA, and I would ask it questions like this, like, explain to an idiot like what this means in VBA, or like help me understand this error. And then you can paste your code and it will look for things in your code that could have thrown that error. So, but you have to be almost overly specific with what you're looking for. So just, yeah, just know that going in, that you have to be very specific. Let's see. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, this is another debugging tool that I use. So I might paste my code here and it will give you errors over here. This is particularly helpful for finding missing parentheses, missing brackets, missing commas, just things like that. Just syntax, they're called syntax errors. This is jshint.com. Because then I don't have to manually look through my code to try to find where stuff might be missing, or if I made a typo and things like that. So this is really handy for that.
I'm going to try to get cyclomatic complexity into a sentence this week.
What?
It says cyclomatic complexity number for this function is 1.
Okay.
It's a fun word. It's fun.
What?
Oh, there you go. What does this mean? Oh, that thing that Thomas McCabe did.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew that. Didn't you know?
Got
it. So we have some time. I have not been keeping an eye on chat.
We're good.
Is there anything in chat that chat wants to go over, or would you? Oh, real quickly. A brief definition of terms. Bluebeam uses JavaScript. It does not use Java. Java is a coding language and it's completely different. So if you're looking to get into JavaScript to program for Bluebeam, do not look up Java. It is not what you want. JavaScript. And then to make things even more confusing, Bluebeam has something called scripting that is not JavaScript. And it's, you can, not what I wanted, script reference. You can use it to like make little buttons that you can add to your toolbars that do a bunch of things all at once. I think their example is like flatten, save, and email. You can type all of those things right in a row, make a button that does it, put that button on your toolbar and then click it and it'll do all of those things and then pop up an email with your PDF attached. And it's not JavaScript. It doesn't look like JavaScript. So just know that script means one thing, JavaScript means another thing, and Java is another. And that's that, right? It's clear as mud.
Yeah. So basically for this script one, they're creating macros.
Yes.
A macro button that allows you to do a bunch of commands that are already existent in Revu, whereas JavaScripting is auto population of form information. It's basically connecting form information into your stamps.
Yeah. And JavaScript can do other things. So, first, I will show, I generally use the Adobe API reference because Bluebeam doesn't have a really helpful API reference.
Because they haven't released it.
I found this on Reddit. not Reddit, Stack Exchange. I found it somewhere on the internet. So these are all the things that you can do. And then I went through and manually highlighted all of the ones that match in the Adobe reference. So you can see how much stuff Adobe does that Bluebeam doesn't allow. Only the highlighted stuff works. So, but like I can come in here and, you know, click on one of these things and it tells me what it tells me what it does. And sometimes it'll give you an example. Yeah, like this one gives you an example. And if the, you know, if it works in Bluebeam, you could copy and paste this and put it down here and try to run it. This particular one does not, but work in Bluebeam, but I could paste it down here and hit Control Enter and it'll run it and you can see what's happening. So I'll show you my game. This is my game that I made. This is the first thing I ever coded in Bluebeam. I cannot solve the puzzle right now. This one's surprisingly tricky. So it's based on a handheld game I had when I was a little kid called Lights Out. I'm thinking about like going and trying to find one on eBay. I can even like remember the feel of the buttons. I played it so much. So in this example, basically blue means the lights are on and gray means the lights are off. And when you click a button, let me isolate. So I'll isolate and I'll click this button in the corner and you can see that when I click it, it toggles the button itself and then it toggles the adjacent buttons.
Oh, okay.
So that's all it does.
So what are you trying to do? Turn all of them
gray? Yes.
Oh, okay. And how many moves it took you?
Oh, hey,
you win.
I was randomly clicking. Yes. So if I have a little window that comes up and it says you win. It keeps track of how many moves you took this round, and then it keeps track of your number of fewest moves, and then you can come down here and hit reset, and it resets the moves this round back to 0, and it resets the board back to its original form so that you can try again and try to beat your number of moves.
Would you look at that?
And it's a freaking PDF file.
Yes.
Wow.
So
does it work if you send it to people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just have to
open it in review.
Yes, you have to open it in review, and then you have to go into advanced JavaScript, and then I like to add folders. So like my Bluebeam JavaScript folder, and then anything I want that to run JavaScript. And this is not true for stamps. This is just true for full-fledged PDFs that use JavaScript. You have to give Bluebeam, you have to let it know what safe locations are. Kind of like Excel when you do macros. You can specify specific folders or specific files that are safe. And that's what you're doing here, because potentially somebody could put some JavaScript in there that you weren't aware of. But it would only, in my case, it would only run if it's in one of these folders.
So a couple of questions here from the chat. Can you set any variables to use in stamps such as project name, project number, spec section, etc.?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Just can you set up variables? Bob, do you want it to auto-populate, the project name, project number, spec section? You can change any of the information that's in your stamp to create custom project name, project number, spec number. I don't know if you could have it search for that information in the title block though.
So I haven't tried this with stamps yet, but it does work for regular full-fledged PDFs. I have, where are we? I have this CSV file right here, and it's just some addresses, as you can see in the preview over there. And that's what's up here. This data pulls from a CSV file. So I have this drop down. I can change to company A. Is it still working? It's not still working. So this one, it broke, and that's why I said it's working-ish. I wrote it in a previous version of Bluebeam, so I would have to come in here and figure out why it's not working. So for my presentation for XCon 2021, virtual one, I talked about JavaScript and they gave me a 3-month copy of 2018, Bluebeam Review 2018, because it still works in 2018. So I would have to come in and just like, they said they rewrote some of the stuff from scratch and some of it worked. So I would have to come in here and write it all from scratch. But yeah, none of these are working. They would if I came in here and made it not suck.
Okay. And then as we keep going through these, because there was a bunch, API going to interact with Review or just cloud. So the API they're releasing is going to be for cloud. They haven't announced a release date for the API within Review. To answer that question. So in theory, you could write a script that would flatten drawings, set sheet names, and establish bookmarks at a click of a button. So I'm guessing that's for the macros.
Yeah, that would work on the macros. I think interacting with bookmarks is not one of the things I've been able to get JavaScript to do. Okay. It interacts very well with form fields. So everything here is a form field. These text boxes that update, those are form field text boxes. All of these are form field buttons. So if I were to come in here and click on one of these buttons.
And then Isaac said, wish I could drop a file here. You can drop a file in the MCR forms on LinkedIn. Next one looks addicting. Now just have to build a D&D library. Where's the mind? 1K, play games and sessions. Regarding stamps, is it possible and easy to change the long CYA text in the default stamp dependent on some radio button inputs?
That's a good question. I don't know. Oh, and I mentioned, I said I was going to talk about checkboxes and I didn't. So I don't know. That's the type of stuff that I'm trying to experiment with. And all of that you will find in this calculation field right here, which you should not touch. It says do not edit. So don't edit it unless you're curious and then want to. It's very easy to break things in here. So if you're playing around, go for it. But if you're actually trying to do something, you're probably going to break it. So that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do. So you can see there's like a lot of stuff in here. And I'm playing around with this to try to get it to do more. So you want a radio button that will toggle this text down here based on what radio button you select. I am not sure. That is an excellent suggestion. I imagine you can add layers in the stamp, and I know you can use JavaScript to turn on and off layers, but I don't know what that would look like once you try to place the stamp. So
next one, if you use stamps, so this is back to Bob's question. Yeah, so basically, Bob, for your question for submittals that you want to have the same project name if you've already placed it once, that'd probably be a batch stamp so that it already has that data that you inputted at the first point. Next one is Isaac sent us a link, the API reference spreadsheet from Jared Litch, I think is how you say his name.
Lichtenthaler is his full last name, and I can never remember how to spell it. Don't ask, because I don't know.
That's funny, because in terms of long names, my cat's name is Wolfgang, but it's from Wolfgang Amadeus, or however you say it.
Mozart.
Yeah, Mozart. Next one, I may have missed this, but how do you link the location of the CSV file?
You did not miss it.
Is it part of the code line in JavaScript?
Yeah, let's see. Choose this one. It's been so long since I've been in here. Oh, I think it's in here. Drop down code. Yeah, so it's in here. So here's how you bring in a JSON file, and that's just a different type of file that it can read. And let's see. JSON, I don't see. Oh, here we go. Here's the CSV. So this is, I brought this up by doing the Control-Shift-J, but again, that's tools, form, JavaScript, and then edit the stamp code. So it's this line right here. And basically I saved the file path, the current file path, wherever this page is this PDF is saved, and then said in that same location, there's a CSV file called sample. And then this just takes that data from the CSV file and just brings it into the Bluebeam cache, basically. Isaac could be laughing at me. I mean, Isaac maybe knows what's going on.
I'm not all the way down in the chat, so if Jason monitors,
no,
the newest
I'm
one's
not
coming
either.
in.
I just don't know if I'm like describing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
And he is probably one of the people that's possibly
I'm back
better
at
than me. But.
Yeah, I'm back at Doug's. Yes, you could probably add a layer. That was your statement earlier. I had to edit do not edit in order to get my stamp to work, but it works great now. Cool, great, Randall. I'm glad that it was actually able to work for you. We have various CYA texts we include based on the type. Yep. So you kind of covered that. Thinking of old ways. Yep. Okay. So thanks. Kind of makes sense. And yep. Isaac replied to you and said, you know way more than me, Liz.
No. I love whenever Isaac goes to you chapter 2 and asks a question, he asks the best questions. And I get really excited when it's a JavaScript question. And then I can like dig into what he's doing because he's doing some really cool stuff, and I just have the best time learning whatever it is that he's doing.
Sounds like it's time for Isaac to pop on MCR and show us some tool things here. Mm-hmm. You up for it, bud?
Let's see this one. Test.
Alex replied to David. That's why we have currently about 16 options. Would be great to shrink that down to one interactive stamp. So yeah, maybe that's something, you know, as a community, you all can hash out a way to create layers that turn off and on by the radial button. That's kind of what you have in dashboards for the radial dropdown. It comes down by button selection, which is just clicking it. So it's a radial button. And then when you click it, it's a layer that turns off and on. So you could have a background layer that is the full length of the stamp, and then a different one that's all in the specific layer that turns off and on.
The hard part
now I want to like go experiment.
Yeah.
Now I want to experiment with that. So that sounds fun and frustrating all at the same time.
I would take the dashboard integration. So if you download a dashboard, the radial stamp is there for it to populate the layer state for it. And the code's there too.
If you want to see how JavaScript interacts with layers, I have a YouTube video on that. So nice. It's more about how I like the topic of the video is more about how I go about troubleshooting with very limited troubleshooting tools within Bluebeam. But in the beginning, I go over how JavaScript is interacting with these layers. So you can check that out.
Perfect. And that is definitely huge when you're creating dashboards in your studio project. Next one I could be, okay. So yeah, if you want to jump on, Isaac, we're more than happy to have anyone join and talk about a topic they're passionate about.
Right. Because, you know, Michael and I came from industry, but we haven't been in industry for a while because we've been working here at ATG. So workflows have changed a little bit. And if you got a workflow that you can legally share, get my own CYA text out there, we'd love to have you on to show something out that could be beneficial for everybody.
This particular stamp does have checkboxes, but I had to download it from Reddit. So somebody from Reddit figured it out, and I didn't save the address. I just saved their stamp. And you can see like how much stuff there is in here. So I'm creating a file. Do we have it? Yes, I'm creating a stamp that has everything, because when you come to the Bluebeam download stamps, like this one just has text boxes and radio buttons, and this one just has text boxes, and this one has text boxes and a drop down. And there's no single stamp where you can get all of them. So I've called this Ultimate Stamp Code. Evil laugh. So I'm trying to concatenate all types of data that you could have in a stamp and putting them all in one stamp, because 0 of them on the Bluebeam website have checkboxes. If you see them and they look like checkboxes, it's a trap. They're all radio buttons. But this one that I got from Reddit has, so if you search like JavaScript stamp checkboxes on Reddit, you might be able to find it and download the stamp.
So you're trying to create one that you can, because basically if you're not going to use the field, you just don't use it or you remove it. So you're trying to have one that has everything in it so that everyone has the options of what they can use in one stamp versus having to pick and choose kind of a basis.
Yes. Yep. That's what I want. And then I'm trying to do some other stuff with stamps too. Like get your batch stamp to like save the info somehow to the PDF so that if you close Bluebeam and open it up later and try to use that stamp, it'll like be like, hey, there's a previous batch stamp info. Do you want to use it? Because right now, if you use a batch stamp and you close Bluebeam and you open it back up, that resets Bluebeam's memory of that stamp and you got to start over.
Yeah, I would assume that it's going to a cache file. And when you close it, it clears the cache. So you would want to point to the metadata in the PDF.
Yeah.
And you would have to find the API of how it grabs that data, which is ironically enough, it's the ISO standard for coding PDFs. So if you find out the ISO standard, which was written by Adobe, then you could hypothetically find that code line text to search for the data in the PDF. That's cool.
I have. You have anything else? Yes, one stamp to rule them all. Yeah. So that's what I got going on with stamps. If you guys have anything else, or if you guys jump in and try to modify a stamp later and you're having trouble, like hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll try to help you out, or go to chapter 2 and post it. Because then it's not just my brain working on it. You got other people working on it too.
Yep. There's chapter 2, which has a lot of forms that was built by Troy DeGroot. That is his company. There is LinkedIn. So you can hit up Liz on LinkedIn. She'll be happy to message you back if you ask an engaging question. You can also post in the forms page that we have on LinkedIn for MCR if you have questions there as well.
There's no updates on XCon yet.
Any XCon updates? Not as of yet.
I'm thinking this late in the year. It's March 1st is tomorrow. It's not looking good, folks.
Did you put your tinfoil hat on?
I made a meme.
There you go. I like it.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, because we had a lot of fun last year, and it'd be nice to get together and share some knowledge in person and high fives and cheers and stuff. So, and
I had like 4 or 5 ideas for stuff I wanted to present, and I was like, I can't do 4 or 5, but I have ideas, and I'm.
You hear that, DJ CJ? There you go. See. So yeah, we'll see. Once we know something, you'll know something. We'll shout it from the rooftops because we're itching to do something and get together, because I think we're getting at the point where everybody's got a little bit of webinar fatigue, a little bit of Zoom fatigue. It's kind of gone backwards, and I think it's kind of cyclical. So I'm ready. Let's do it. So
yes. Also, any excuse for my job to pay for my travel. Yeah.
Fair. Well, that brings us to the end of our time. Liz, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today, as always. Michael, DJ CJ, the whole Bluebeam community. Love you guys. See you next week. We'll be talking about statuses and sessions, and we'll have Liz Larson on again.
Yes. And we could do a showdown, Liz, again, of my opinions and your opinions on how custom statuses work.
Statuses are necessary in session, and I will not use sessions without statuses.
Oh boy, here we go. Tune in next week, everybody.
So we'll bring out the gloves. See you all next week.